Hey everyone, and welcome back to the QRL show for an AMA episode. Myself and Michael Strike from the QRL team are hosting an AMA with QRL lead blockchain developer Kaushal Kumar Singh. Kaushal is joining us to discuss our recent release of QRL Zond public beta testnet v1. Over the past few days, we've been polling dozens of questions um, from the community online on a number of different channels. So, what we're going to do is we've been doing our best to kind of group some of those questions together, pull some of those out individually, so that throughout an AMA episode, we're able to cover a really good chunk of those, whether you have a question around staking, documentation, setup, anything related to that. Michael Strike, while we're waiting another minute or two for a couple more people to join this live feed, could you? I'm going to pull up on screen some of the questions we're going to jump into, but could you cover for someone that's maybe new or to the project? Can you give us a brief overview in terms of what our project, the QRL, is about, and then right from there we will jump right into the AMA questions with Kaushal.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll do a quick intro. For anyone that's new to the show or new to the project, if you're jumping in and you don't know much about us, Michael Strike, director of outreach at the QRL. Let's start out this way. What problem do we solve? We act as essentially an insurance policy against the quantum threat for blockchain, including Bitcoin, Ethereum. We have our own native blockchain, and it is an XMSS NIST. It uses an XMSS NIST recommended hash-based signature scheme. There are some upgrades to that signature scheme that are coming out that Kaushal will get into. But essentially, what this is with quantum computers being this nascent technology that's coming in and potentially having the capability to disrupt bank communications, internet communications, and particularly digital signatures under blockchain. Our project solves that problem in that since Genesis, since the first block, we've been provably post quantum secure. So that's the project. If you have any questions, we can be found at www.qrl.org. And for those of you our esteemed Discord community members, I'll be taking questions. I'll be watching the general chat. So if you want to post things in there too, I'll try to bring those up too, and we can talk about those as well. So, but I'd like to I'll pass the torch here to Kaushal.
Awesome, Kaushal. Whenever you're ready, we're going to jump into the first segment of questions. For those viewing, what we're going to do is we're going to cover a number of the questions that we've curated from the past week or so, from a few dozen. We'll go through a host of those. And then towards the end, if you have any additional questions related to QRL Zond and the Beta-Testnet v1, we'll cover those. So, Kaushal, the first question I want to jump into, that's a general question, is on, can you first fill us in for a minute or two on what is QRL Zond public beta testnet v1? It's a lot of words put together. In short, what is it, and what stage is it at, and maybe what does it lead into a little bit? Just give us a high level overview. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me for this EMA. I know we were discussing about this a lot of time, and finally we have met this. So for this QRL Zond public beta testnet version 1, so basically this is the first public release of what we are working for, the proof of stake implementation of the QRL blockchain. It is not yet complete. Like, we still have to do lots of work, including addition of XMSS cryptography, couple of changes with the reward and penalty algorithms. But still, it is at a very good stage. Why I'm saying very good is just because it is very much stable right now compared to what we used to do last year. What stage we were last year, and it's like, so basically, this public beta testnet version 1 is like of what we have done till now, and it is to give the people an idea, the community an idea, like how the actual QRL proof of stake node is going to look like, what kind of technicalities you need to know in if you want to stake or if you want to run a QRL node. So yeah, that's what it is, the beta testnet is about. But yeah, because the name is beta, so you can expect some bugs. So it's not like the it's bug free. There are bugs, but I don't think anything critical which could stop the node. At least till right now, the node is still running perfectly fine without any issues. We have done a thorough testing on this to ensure that the quality of the public beta testnet version 1 remains top notch, but still you may still get the bugs, and could be like some UI stuff that which is not very much clear, which is going to evolve in the upcoming time.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. That's helpful to know, and also just to keep in mind. A couple questions that we're going to go into now. They might jump over the place a little bit, but this one is high level one regarding documentation, because different people jumping into it are at different stages. Some people might be a little more advanced. Some people might just be getting started. So a good one to cover that I think we had a number of questions around documentation from the various platforms was, what's the best documentation for the new released Beta-Testnet V1 for someone that's just getting started, and then maybe for someone that's a little more advanced, where should they start at this point? I know it might evolve a little over time, but right now, what would you recommend for them?
I think the best documentation is already shared in the Discord channel, in our official Discord channel. It is test-zond theqrl.org. So if you go to like test-zond.theqrl.org, then you could see the latest documentation, which is completely compatible with the latest Zond public beta testnet that we have released. So that should be working. And yeah, the documentation is still in progress, so there could be more new stuffs would come out with later time. But yeah, it still mentions like how you can install it, how you can make transactions. So yeah, the basic things is already there.
Could you repeat that, just since we don't have it on screen? I'll drop it in the show notes for anyone viewing this later. But could you say that URL once more before we jump to the next question? So if
Yeah,
anyone wants to view while we're talking.
it's test hyphen zond dot the qrl dot org.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it. That's helpful. Figure a few people will want to maybe reference it while we're answering the next few questions. The next one, Strike, you wanna jump into this one, this and the next one, and then we'll keep continuing.
Yeah. So if you look at the screen here, is my audio okay? Can you guys
Yeah.
hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. This is a screen of the public demo that was running on my workstation. And Kaushal, you and I were talking within a team meeting, and one of the screens is goes on, and the other is the beacon chain. Is it Chrism? I'm not the developer. It could be. Can you describe the differences between these two windows, and if these are going to be if this is what it's going to look like production post Zond, basically what their functions are, and go into the little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So we have like two different kind of nodes, which is one of them is goes on, another one is Chrism. So goes on is basically uh, the execution layer. So from execution layer, what I mean to say is like it keeps tracks of your balance, like how much balance each address holds or how much balance a smart contract holds, and it takes care of like uh, the smart contract execution. So if you are interacting with the Zond node and you are deploying a smart contract or interacting with it or making any transactions related to the smart contract or the basic transactions where you move funds, everything is taken care by the Go Zond, because that's the execution layer. Even if you are trying to deposit funds to start staking on the testnet, so even that deposit happens by the interaction of the smart contract, so that part is taken care by the goes on. And goes on also has the p2p layer, so the nodes connected with the Zond network, uh, when they receive a transaction similar to like smart contract deployment or fund transfer, everything is taken care by the goes on. But the Chrism, which is the beacon chain node, so basically it has the implementation of the proof of stake consensus algorithm. So the proof of stake consensus algorithm is completely taken care by the beacon chain node. It's not taken care by the goes on. So beacon chain node has a dependency on the goes on. It requires that you must be running a zon node, a goes on node, so that the beacon chain node can connect with it and determine like what what validators have actually deposited the transaction that is required for staking, and then it checks its rules of like, okay, whatever the consensus protocol rules are there, so it checks with that, and then it checks, okay, if we have reached to the block finalization or justification. So anything that is related to the consensus protocol is taken care by the Chrism, which is the beacon chain node. And so that's why we have two different things. If you talk about technically, can we have the same one node instead of two? Yes, we can, but I think there are certain things that would help us in future to scale, and if having two different nodes would help us better. And with the Chrism, there is also a P2P stuff in the Chrism too, along with like in the goes on, there is a set of peers which interact with each other and share the transactions. Similarly, in the Chrism, there is also a P2P layer which has the interaction between multiple. It's like in the Prism, in the Chrism part, when the validators interact with each other, or maybe they are attesting a block or they are proposing a block. So that happens by the P2P layer of the Chrism. So that's how these two nodes are different with each other.
Thanks for covering that
Thanks.
one. Let's jump into one around uptime. This one is a question we pulled. What's the uptime requirement when running a validator node, and how does slashing work? Strike, is there anything you want to add to this one? I know we had a couple questions around this. Anything else, or is this good as is? I know we might have had a
Uh,
couple on this one.
so obviously it's important to have your node up as much as possible. That's part of the consensus mechanism. What's normally done in proof of work is that you can bounce the miners can bounce in and out. The nodes are always up, but it's okay if they're not always up. Proof of stakes kind of changes that dynamic a little bit in that if you're not online with your stake, that the network could perceive that as being not nefarious or a potential bad actor. So some proof of stake mechanisms have implemented slashing. So if you're not available, you might get a certain amount of percentage slashed or something like that. Polkadot has it. I think Cardano has it. I think Cardano has it too. Kaushal, could you go into a little bit about what like how what the best way in the goal of the uptime for the validator node to be up? Like for example, if you're up, can it be 3 nines or 2 nines up? And if there are some hiccups for people that want to run, for example, their own node on their own home network, some of the things that they might want to keep an eye on, because that would be helpful to know, I think, for our community.
Yeah, sure. So with the node requirement, especially when you are a validator node, the best part is like it is much better if you remain online 100% of the time, though it's not possible because there could be sometime technical hiccups or maybe a network issues or you need some kind of upgrade. So yeah, so in that case, it's like it depends on your luck. If you are offline during a specific time when you actually need to participate in the consensus mechanism as a validator, and you miss that participation, then you are basically going to receive some kind of penalty, which is going to reduce your staking balance. How much staking balance will be reduced, that specific part, like how much amount would be slashed from your balance, that is still not finalized, because that's the second thing that we are going to work in this upcoming week, and that is going to be part of the next release, not this release. So if you are staking on the QR node, and if you are and if you missed some of the blocks, maybe if you missed your participation, you would be seeing your balance is reducing, but the amount that you are seeing at this moment is not the finalized one. The finalized one would be in the next version because we are working on that specific part. But yeah, uh, if the best thing is you remain online all the time. If that's not possible, then you should have a backup plan so that if your node goes offline and you know that just the moment it goes offline, there should be like you are going to participate, or your turn to participate as a validator is going to come very much sooner. In that case, you should have a second node with the validator key so that it could participate. But yeah, 100% should be the best case, but if not, then you have to rely on your luck. If your luck is bad, your node actually went offline just at the specific time when there was your turn, then you are definitely going to uh, penalized for that. It would be a small amount, but yeah.
So the good news
Thank
is
you for
that
covering that.
it doesn't take a lot of resources to run a node under proof of stake. So that should make for anyone that wants to have a seriously staked amount, then they could probably run a cloud PC for relatively cheap, something in the cloud, AWS or um, you whatever
Fill in the
service
blank.
they want. Yeah, in
Great.
the cloud. So, but Kushal, I just have one other question, and for you. We've been working on this for quite some time. How long have we been working on this Zond upgrade?
So for the Zond upgrade, I think like we started 7 or 8 months before the hackathon to implement the smart contract into the Zond. So 2 years, more than 2 years, I could say. It could be like 2.5 years, something like that.
So between 2 and 3 years,
Yeah.
this is a major upgrade. So uh, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Back to you, Ryan.
Yep. No, that's good to cover that one. I feel like one of the later questions we had a pretty funny one that kind of relates to that. But there's another one. Could you describe the benefits of running a validator node? We kind of covered this a little bit um, in the community chatter. Do you think we covered this one enough, or is there anything else whole wise that we should fill anyone in on? If not, we can jump to the next one.
Mm, yeah.
Kushal, you can go ahead and take that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So if you are trying to run a validator node, so I think it's more of a responsibility. You are taking a responsibility in a network to ensure the security and the decentralization of this network. So when there is a responsibility, there are pros and cons. So pros are, as long as you are behaving honestly into the network, you are going to be rewarded as a validator. And other pros are like you are securing the network, because that's the whole idea of having a validator node, because you are going to participate, you are going to attest the blocks, you are going to propose the blocks. So yes, so from security wise, decentralization wise, it's a great thing. But if you miss your participation turn, as I mentioned in the previous question, so if you miss that, then there comes the penalty. So that's the con part. But yeah, it's being a validator in a proof of stake consensus mechanism is a more of a responsibility. So if you are willing to take the responsibility, if you believe that you have the sufficient knowledge and you can take care, you can ensure that your node doesn't goes offline very much frequently, then you should go for it.
Thank you for thanks for covering that. Let's talk a little bit about. Here's a question. There might be one or two on this one. This just pulled this one. What is the throughput and TPS of QRL in its final form? You want to touch on this briefly?
Okay. So TPS is not yet fully decided just because we are still at the beginning stage. But the TPS would be much better compared to what we had in the Python version of the QRL node. So I don't want to give any estimation at this moment, just because we are right now just with the dilithium cryptography. We also have to implement the XMSS wallet, XMSS cryptography to support that, and then we have to look into like how this how much the TPS we are getting, if all the transactions are into XMSS, all are in dilithium, or it's mixed kind of stuff. And there are a couple of things that we have to finalize, which is like what would be the block size that we prefer, the maximum amount of gas, and how much is the TPS if it is interacting with the smart contract. So it would be better than the existing Python node, just because we are using Go, and there are Go runs much faster, and we can we are taking the benefit of this Go routine. So that would be much faster. But exact number that we need, that would be available only after we release close to the actual mainnet.
Yeah, that's good to note down for the person that asked that. Um, Next one. This one's kind of a broader question. Michael Strike, do you want to add anything to this? I think this one was kind of just in balance between liquidity and security. So I'll just read it out. You can just
Yeah,
answer it based on your
it's
opinion.
pretty explanatory as it is. So
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have in mind a targeted stake percentage? And then based on that, what do you think a good percentage roughly, or kind of balancing between both of the two, both security and liquidity?
I think this one's mostly market driven. More people that want to stake will lock up their funds. So I think the question's about like how is there a good target for a project between security and liquidity? And I think a good second part of this question would be: is there an unlocking period of time that would have to pass? Can you unlock immediately if you wanted to, or is there a 30-day hold down period or something like that? Kaushal, you're on mute
Michelle,
as well.
yep.
Yeah. So in terms of unlocking it, right now it takes around, I think, 20 hours. If I remember correctly, it takes 20 to 24 hours if you are locking your funds, and if you are trying to unlock it, it may take 20 to 24 hours. But even that's not guaranteed, just because there is a limit of how many number of validators could join per epoch, and how many validators can withdraw per epoch. So if it's like, if there are 100 new validators actually going to join as a validator, if there are 100 new stake deposit transaction which are trying to become a validator, so all of those 100 are not going to be accepted into a single epoch, because the epoch has a limit of 10 validators uh, per epoch, and so that would take more time for them to lock the fund. And similarly, if they try to exit, then that limit is still going to be there. So if lots of stakers or validator are trying to exit, then if that limit is hold, then every epoch, which is, so epoch is basically a group of 128 blocks. So every epoch, like, there is a limit, so only that number of validators could exit, and then in next epoch, then another set of 10 or 15 validators could exit, and that's how it works. So the minimum time, if you ask, then it's going to take 20 to 24 hours to lock your funds, and then to start to actually become a validator. And the same goes if you are trying to exit from the validator.
Sounds good. This one is also around with staking. Can I run my validator node without leaving my private key to my 40K stake on the server? Anything to add here, Kushal?
Yeah. So the I think how works is like, when you have a wallet, and let's say it has a 40K quanta, and you have to stake, which requires a 40K quanta. So there is a deposit contract, and we have a CLI tool which allows you to do that. So what happens is, when if you are trying to stake, you are basically going to, the CLI itself generates a new wallet, which will be only used for staking, and it has no other purpose. If you want, you can even use that for other purposes, but the basic idea is that new wallet which is generated, it gets the power to act on your behalf, like to act as a validator. It could attest or whatever the validator role is based on that. So what happens is you make a CLI, you use the CLI, you basically generates a new wallet, and then there is a file is generated which is a deposit data.json which has the deposit transaction. Then you broadcast that deposit transaction, and the 40k amount, the 40k QRL or the quanta is deducted from your main wallet, and that is given to the smart contract, and that deposit smart contract then get aware of like which specific public key is going to use that fund for staking. So once you are done with that deposit transaction, you can remove your the private key of your main wallet from which you have made the deposit. Okay, but the deposit is not in your main wallet because it has already moved to the deposit smart contract. And now the new key which is generated by the same CLI, which is going to be used for staking, that specific private key has to be stored onto the system, because without that private key you cannot sign anything, you cannot attest, you cannot sign the transactions, or the block which you are proposing. So that private key would remain in the system. But the benefit is it cannot withdraw, it cannot steal your funds. So if your system is compromised, and if the person who has compromised your system, they steal the private key of your validator wallet, it cannot withdraw the fund, because that's how we have made this in the smart contract. So if you want to withdraw, you still need to have the main wallet's private key, which is not used for staking, which was just used to deposit to fund your wallet, which is going to be used for staking. So only main wallet could be used to deposit and to withdraw the funds. So whatever private keys of the validators you have kept on the system, they cannot steal your fund. The only thing that could happen in the worst case is if someone has compromised your system, they could use your validator keys to misbehave on the network, so that you get penalized for that, and then you lose the funds. But yeah, that's the only way you could lose. But they cannot steal that, they cannot steal your 40k quanta just because you have the private key of all those validators, because validator is not allowed to withdraw the funds. Only the main wallet could make the transaction and tell that, hey, I deposited that 40k quanta for this validator for staking. Now I don't want to, I want to exit from the validator. So that could only be done from the main wallet.
Thanks for covering that one. The next one is, can you expound on the necessity to run two separate executables, consensus engine and execution engine?
Yeah, so basically these are two different nodes. So when it comes to the execution engine, so execution engine is the part of the goes on, and the consensus engine is the part of beacon chain. So that is the chrism. So the execution engine, as I mentioned, I think on the second question when I was answering that, I mentioned that the execution engine takes care of the basic things of the network, which is like normal transaction that we make to transfer the tokens or the funds, whatever it is, to deploy the smart contract, to interact with the smart contract, or to store uh, the state of each address, like how much a token each address is holding. Everything is taken care by the execution engine. But the with the name of the consensus engine, which is the chrism, so it takes care of how the consensus execution is going to happen when the node has to be penalized. So which epoch is justified, which epoch is finalized, or if what are the next set of validators. So or how the random, so we have a random, so which is basically it generates it does the randomization of validator's role, and when each validator is at which block the validator is going to participate. So all of those things is taken care by the consensus engine. It also has the P2P network, as I mentioned before, where it interacts with each validator, and it gets the transactions related to the consensus. So transactions related to the consensus engine are like attestation. So if a validator makes an attestation to a specific block, then that's a transaction that only that only broadcasted via the Prism network, because Prism has its own P2P. So that's why we have two different and separate executables. But it's not like we cannot make it one. We can make it one, but having a two different nodes would help us in future to add more stuffs independently. But yeah, the consensus engine, which is the Prism, has the dependency on the Zond node. So you can run Go Zond. Of course, it will not be synced, but you cannot run the consensus engine without having a Zond node. So that's how they are relatable to each other.
Thank you. We got a couple more we're going to go into. Some will cover a little bit more than others. This one just I pulled this one directly. Some of the other ones were grouped together or generalized, but this one, what will the hard fork look like for a goober like me? It's a good one. Can you describe the ideal user experience when test-non-zon moves to mainnet? You can kind of bring this higher level, however you want to cover this one, for the general audience alongside this individual's question.
The ideal experience is everything works perfectly.
Okay, so for the hard fork, yeah, I know we all want this to be simplicity. We want it to be simplest, much easier, and should be something that everyone can do it, everyone can understand it. So for this part, we have finalized up to a point is like we are going to release when the mainnet or the audit of the Zond is done, completed. After that, we are going to release a fork, or I say the hard fork for the Python node of the QRL, where we are going to hard code a specific block number. So at that point of time, like at that specific block, once that is triggered, from that point of time, there would be no block creation based on the proof of work consensus algorithm. So till there we have already finalized, because that's how we are going to stop the existing Python node. And from there are a couple of things that we are still discussing. We will bring that in public soon for the discussion and everything, so that people understand that. So the whole idea, which is finalized for now, is that we will release another version, like of something 5.0 something, for the QRL Python, and there we will set hard code a specific block, and once that block is triggered, you will see no more blocks are being mined on that Python network. So, and after that, once that is done, from there we are going to look into, like, we have to take all those states, we have to uh, taking balances, and the OTS used is easy. That's not a big deal though. So only thing that we have to take care of is to implement hard coded smart contracts for the tokens that are already implemented into the into the Python version of the QRL. And yeah, so once that part is finalized, like how what we are going to do after that specific block height, like once that POW stops mining blocks at that point of time, once that is finalized, we will make it public. But for now, that is still being discussed into the team. And I think uh, maybe once we are done with the reward and the penalty and couple of more things, then it's like we will be fully focusing on this part, like how people are going to migrate from the Python version to the uh, Zond. So it will take a little bit of more time, but for now, whatever is confirmed, I have already mentioned. But for things that is still being on discussion, I think for that, community has to wait.
Thanks for covering that one. Let's go to the next one, which is the Zon testnet the same testnet as before? If not, how will we approach proving out the process for forking mainnet? I think we have a few more of these, and then we can go to any additional questions that Strike has been pulling in, any added ones from the community. But if you could touch on this one briefly, Kushal, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Zon testnet is not the same testnet as before. Neither it is same like we had the Python testnet, nor it is exact same that we had during the hackathon. Lots of things has changed in last 1 year and couple of months. So we have changed a lot. So it's not the same. And talking about the process of forking mainnet, I have already discussed this just in the last question. Is like we still have few things being discussed in the team. Thing which is already confirmed is we are going to release this Python version of the proof of work and going to halt mining at a specific block height, and from there whatever things we finalize we will let the community know, and it would be like a open discussion. If people believe that it could be done in much better way like this, then it's okay. We will have time for the discussion with the community on this.
Thanks for covering that. Let's jump to the next one, which is how to step-by-step make smart contracts in QRL Zond. Is there documentations? I think Strike might have you just pulled a couple of these in, so I'm just pulling these directly in. If you could cover this one, Kushal.
Yes, so I think during hackathon we had a I think there I showed like how you can deploy a smart contract. Things have changed from there. So we have we had a Zond contract example, which is a repository on the QRL official GitHub. So in that repository, we have already updated the codes with the latest Web3.js library, which is so we had an old Web3.js library that was used in the hackathon that has been already removed, and we released a new Web3.js library. That using that Web3.js library, one can easily deploy the smart contract, interact with it, and if they want to have an example, that link is there. If they go into the QRL repository, they look for the repository name having zond hyphen contract hyphen example. There they can see the README, like how they can uh, okay, so the README is not updated, but the deploy code on chain call and the off chain call.js, which basically one is to deploy the smart contract, one is to interact the smart contract with on chain, and other is to interact with the smart contract off chain. Those code has already been updated, and they are using the latest Web3.js library, which is compatible with the new Zond node. And about the README, I think that would be updated soon. Most probably the next week that would be updated. But if someone, if they just go to the deploy.js and they understand the code, then it is easy to use that and to have a smart contract deployed on the currently Zond running with this public beta testnet.
Okay. This is asking the high level questions here on the YouTube AMA. Kushal, speaking of the question earlier that Michael asked on really just the accumulation of the body of work that's been done over the past few years. This one, hey Kushal, do you get any sleep? I think this is related to all the development that's being done.
That's a funny question. I mean,
Questionable.
it could be. I mean, it's the part of a developer's life. We all have gone through this, and I'm pretty much sure that everyone in the team has gone through that part of it, where they have to work continuously for long hours and might not got enough sleep for a couple of days, especially when there are things uh, hitting deadline, or you have got all of a sudden something you found that needs to be done very much quickly. So yeah, we have all gone through that phase. But yeah, I do sleep. I do sleep well.
I like
uh,
I like how literally you're taking this question too. So appreciate you covering that. But really, it's just testament to the hard work and
yeah.
a lot of the progress that you've made over a long period of time. But really, I think we covered this briefly in a short video for Twitter a week or two ago. But for those that didn't see that, Kushal, as we close out and get to the last couple questions, is there anything else in addition that you want the QRL community and by at large to know about the release of QRL Zond, public beta testnet v1. I know we've covered a lot of it in this video AMA already, but is there anything additional, whether it's additional resources to get started or even just added notes that you want them to keep in mind of it's a stepping stone to the next progress mark? It's a test net. What else would you like the community that's viewing this video either now or later to know about?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that to make people aware that the release of the public beta testnet version 1 is the whole idea is to make sure that people try it and we get the inputs from that. Like we have already received input from the community member, like hey, there is this or like this could be improved or something like that. So the whole idea is that people test it, maybe they found some bug or something like that, they let us know so that it saves our time, as well as it help us to know, like we thought like this is simple, but probably in terms of documentation or something we need to add more so that people can understand the whole process in a much easier way or a better way. So yeah, I want people to test as much as they can based on whatever their capability is, and this I want to let them know that smart contract feature is there. So I want everyone to try staking. I want everyone to try what happens when you actually keep your node offline for longer hours, and what happens, like how soon you get removed from the validator, or it's like you try to deploy the smart contract, interact with it. So I want people to play with it as much as they can so that we can have a much better testing with this, as well as a much better feedbacks from the community itself.
I appreciate
And
it.
yeah,
So lob in on that one. Kushal, is there a way for people to get test quanta that they can stake?
I think I have already shared the keys of the test quanta with the team. If someone doesn't have, then I will share that. But make sure the team should be able to, like they should be able to share the quanta with whoever required. Just need to make sure that we don't overspend things. It's like because it's a proof of stake. So if there are lots of validators who joins and then they goes offline, uh, there could be like we might not be hitting the finality or justification. So for that we need at least two-third of the validators to be online. One-third of the validators can go offline, that is fine. So that's why this time we have a approach of where we are trying to limit the distribution of the funds on the testnet. So that has to be done by the team members. So in case they want the test quanta, they can ping to any of the team members, and then if they have and yeah, and the team members then could just send that quanta to whoever required that. But just need to make sure.
What
uh,
about people that aren't in Discord? Could they send something to info@theqrl.org and
yeah,
say some test
yeah,
quanta?
that's yeah, they can send to support info@ql.org, whatever. So as long as they share their address, because we need address to send the quanta. So yeah.
Yeah, is there Michael, is there any other additional questions that you're seeing that are coming in real time? I know we're hitting about the 45-minute mark, so cognizant of that. I feel like upcoming in the coming months we can have a follow-up AMA to this as well. Is there any other ones that you see off the bat that jump out that are we haven't covered that we could cover as a last question or so? I think if not, we've covered uh, a multitude of them already.
We
Is there
have
any?
we have in our Discord group, we've got Moscow Chill. Shout out to Moscow Chill. Do you recommend running both Zond and Chrism if I just plan on staking?
So yeah, if you are on proof of stake network, you have to run both of them. You have to run the Chrism, because only Chrism has the consensus protocol. So if you will not be able to sync with the blocks if you are not running the Chrism, because when the blocks comes, the consensus protocol has to validate everything, including the validators who have attested those blocks and the block proposer who actually that block, and that validation part can only be done by the consensus engine, which is the part of the chrism. And when it comes to the validation of the balance, like if someone made a transaction and is like making moving funds from one account to another account, whether he has sufficient funds to move that or not, that part of validation is only done by the zond, because zond has all those data. So yeah, you have to run both of them, even if you are not validating. If you just want to run a node which is completely synced, if you just run the goes on, you don't run the chrism, then you will not be able to sync.
Thanks for covering that one. Michael, any other last ones? I think that's um, pretty much wraps up the broader questions that we had. Any last ones? I think we're pretty
I
good
think
on time.
we covered everything from the community. We covered stuff, anything from that was posted in. There's one question from Discord General.
Yeah, no,
I don't have
appreciate.
anything else.
Yeah, no, I think as a wrap up, first off, Kushal, appreciate you jumping on with us to discuss the questions. A number of them. For those that are viewing, those of you that are in our community, you kind of already know what our community, the QRL, is about. But for those of you that are viewing this for the first time and aren't familiar, this is what our project's about. We've been around for quite a while, and if it's your first time viewing this and you want to have an entry point in, um, join our community in wherever you want to join, whether it's jumping in on Discord, checking out our QRL YouTube content. If you're a developer, you can get active within the community as well. So just closing out, Kushal, appreciate you joining Michael Strike and I for this episode. For those watching, make sure to keep those digital assets post quantum secure, and we will see you all in the next episode. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Kushal.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, community.